They did not call it a war.in the Imperial Archive. The decision occupied less than half a page. Earth, third planet of a yellow dwarf star, moderate gravity, unstable climate cycles, fractured governance, was categorized as a potential future variable. Variables were inconvenient. The Empire preferred clean equations. The council chamber above the capital world glowed with layered holograms, star maps stacked over population density curves, industrial output charts reduced to pale slivers compared to the galactic norm. Earth barely registered. Its electromagnetic emissions were noisy, inefficient. Its propulsion signatures clumsy and chemical. It was a world still clawing at its gravity well with fire and hope. The Empire had encountered such worlds before. Probability of resistance escalation, one counselor asked, his voice translated into perfect neutrality, negligible, replied the strategic intelligence construct. No unified command. No interstellar capability. No defense against orbital supremacy. Another counselor gestured, collapsing the model until only Earth remained, a fragile blue-white sphere rotating slowly in artificial light. Then strike first, she said. Erase the variable. There was no malice in it. No hatred. Just efficiency. The order propagated outward through hyperspace relays, coded and validated 1,000 times over. A task force already in transit altered course by fractions of a degree. Weapon systems that had sterilized worlds older than humanity warmed from dormancy. No message was sent to Earth. No declaration was issued. The Empire did not warn primitives. From orbit, the planet was beautiful. Cloud systems spiraled over oceans that reflected their star in soft gradients. Nightside cities glimmered like scattered jewels, clusters of light betraying where billions lived their brief, frantic lives unaware that the judgment of an ancient civilization was descending upon them at near-light speed. The first impacts were silent. Kinetic rods released from high orbit fell without sound, accelerated by gravity and guidance systems that corrected for atmospheric drag to the microsecond. They struck fault lines beneath coastal megacities, converted mass into energy, and cracked the planet's crust like thin ice. Then came the light. Orbital platforms ignited arrays designed not to destroy worlds outright, but to end civilizations cleanly. Targeted energy beams swept across power grids, communication hubs, launch facilities. Satellites died first, blinking out in clusters as if night itself was swallowing the sky. On the surface, people saw the stars move. They looked up as unfamiliar streaks crossed the heavens, too straight, too bright, too fast. Some recorded. Some prayed. Some laughed, assuming spectacle where there was only execution. Cities vanished, not exploded, not in the crude human sense. They were erased, their structures reduced to expanding clouds of ionized debris, their foundations melted into glowing scars visible from orbit. Oceans boiled where energy beams lanced too deep. Atmosphere ignited briefly, a thin shell of fire racing around the planet before dissipating. Military bunkers. Alarm screamed once, then went dead as power failed. Missile silos never opened. Aircraft never left the ground. Naval fleets burned in harbor, their steel hulls folding like paper under energies meant to cripple far greater foes. Humanity had always imagined the end would be loud. It was not. It was precise. From the command deck of the lead Imperial vessel, the task force commander watched in silence as data streams confirmed success after success. Resistance indices flat-lined. Organized military capability fell below relevance thresholds within 11 minutes. Surface populations reduced by 40%, reported an aide. Infrastructure collapse approaching total. Good, the commander replied. Maintain pattern. Avoid unnecessary planetary destabilization. The Empire did not want a dead world. Dead worlds were useless. They wanted a quiet one. On Earth, beneath kilometers of reinforced rock and ancient stone, the world shook deep shelters, some built in secret during old human conflicts, others repurposed mines and transit systems, absorbed the shock as designed. Seismic dampeners engaged. Emergency lights flickered, then stabilized. People screamed at first, then they listened. Then they waited. One such facility, carved deep under mountain range once contested by long-dead nations, A group of men and women gathered around analog maps and digital projections running on isolated systems. They had lost contact with the surface. They had lost satellites, cities, entire regions, but they were alive. How many are left? Someone asked. The answer was incomplete. It would remain so for years. What do we do? Another voice demanded, cracking under the weight of extinction pressing down on them, and no one answered immediately. To the far end of the chamber, a woman in a plain uniform stood with her hands clasped behind her back. She had not spoken since the bombardment began. Her hair was pulled tight. Her posture relaxed in a way that unsettled those who noticed it. Her eyes moved constantly, tracking data, watching people rather than screens. When she finally spoke, her voice was level. We learn, she said. Above them, the Empire finished its work. After 78 minutes, the task force ceased fire. Energy expenditures were within acceptable parameters. Atmospheric composition remained marginally stable. Surface temperatures would normalize within decades. Survivors, if any existed, would be scattered, disorganized, and technologically crippled. A junior analyst hesitated before submitting the final report. Commander, he said carefully, long-range bioscans indicate residual population clusters below expected extinction thresholds. The commander glanced at the data, then away. Subterranean survivors, he said. Primitive instinct. Do we? No, the commander interrupted. They pose no threat. Mark the system as pacified and proceed. The task force turned away from Earth, its drives bending spacetime as it vanished into the dark. No victory parade was scheduled and no songs were written. The Empire simply moved on. On Earth, the night lasted a very long time. The sky no longer spoke. Radios hissed with static. Stars were obscured by lingering ash and particulate clouds that choked the atmosphere. Those who emerged briefly to search for survivors did so in sealed suits, moving through landscapes that no longer resembled memory. Governments, such as they had been, ceased to exist. Flags burned with everything else. Borders collapsed along with infrastructure. Old enemies found themselves sharing water filters and ration packs in darkness, and slowly, quietly, something else happened. The survivors began to connect. Fiber optic cables buried deep enough to survive the strikes were rerouted. Hardwired systems came online. Analog radios, crude, inefficient, dismissed for decades, proved resilient. Messages crept through the underground like roots searching for water. Alive. Here. Shelter intact. Alive. Losses heavy. Still fighting to breathe. Alive. Deep in the mountain facility, the woman listened as reports accumulated. She did not interrupt the grim accounting. She did not offer comfort. When the last voice fell silent, she stepped forward. They thought we were finished, she said. That means they will not watch us closely. A man across the table laughed bitterly. We don't have a fleet. We don't have cities. We barely have power. We have time, she replied. They gave us that. Someone shook their head. Time for what? Survival. She met his gaze. Preparation. Weeks turned into months, months into years. The surface remained hostile, but human adaptability was relentless. Crops were engineered to grow under artificial light. Water was recycled with ruthless efficiency. Children were born underground, never seeing the sky, raised on stories of a blue planet that had once been whole. Above all, knowledge was preserved. The Empire had never feared the dark. IT had mapped it, charted it, named it, and bent it to the purpose of expansion. For millennia, nothing unknown had survived long enough to become dangerous. Civilizations either submitted, were incorporated, or were quietly removed from relevance. History, to the Empire, was a ledger of solved problems. Earth had been entered as solved so when border outposts began reporting sensor ghosts, mass fluctuations without heat signatures, gravitational ripples without corresponding mass. The reports were dismissed as calibration drift. Engineers were reprimanded. Instruments were replaced. The ghosts remained. Then a forward logistics world lost power, not destroyed. Not invaded. Simply dark. An Imperial patrol fleet arrived to find orbital stations intact, atmosphere stable, population centers untouched. But every system that made civilization function had been stripped to inert metal. Fusion plants were cold. Data cores were wiped so thoroughly that even quantum backups returned nothing but static. The inhabitants were alive, confused, terrified, unharmed. The Empire convened an emergency analysis council. Not a war council. Wars required enemies. This was something else. They are targeting infrastructure without casualties, one strategist reported. This contradicts known terror doctrines. Perhaps a rival empire, another suggested. No known power operates this way, the intelligence construct replied. Patterns do not match. What about Earth? A junior counselor asked. Hesitantly, silence followed. That world was neutralized, the senior marshal said flatly. Its remnants were incapable of interstellar action. The intelligence construct paused, a hesitation so brief it would have gone unnoticed by anyone not trained to observe machines. Updating probability matrices, it said. Reassessment recommended. The first true battle occurred near a gas giant whose moon supplied half a sector's fuel. Imperial warships formed up in perfect geometry, their hulls shining with the arrogance of unchallenged power. Sensors swept the void, active pings echoing outward in overlapping nets. They found nothing. Then their targeting solutions failed, not jammed, not spoofed. Failed. Coordinates refused to stabilize. Predictive algorithms returned contradictions. Firing arcs recalculated endlessly, never resolving into certainty. Something moved at the edge of perception, too slow to be a missile, too fast to be debris. When the first Imperial cruiser lost gravity, its hull folding inward as if grasped by an invisible hand, panic rippled through the formation. Weapons fired blindly. They struck nothing. Then voices filled the fleet's internal channels, bypassing encryption as if it were ceremonial. This system is closed, a calm human voice said. Female. Unaccented. Almost gentle. Withdraw. The fleet commander demanded identification. Demanded terms. Demanded compliance. The reply was immediate. You were given terms 10 years ago. The second cruiser imploded. The Empire withdrew, not routed. Not destroyed, but shaken across the galaxy. Similar encounters unfolded. Human forces never appeared in strength. Never held territory. They struck supply lines, communication relays, shipyards mid-construction. Always precisely. Always disappearing before retaliation could lock on. Imperial crews began to whisper about ghosts, about the quiet ships that did not glow in hyperspace, about a human woman who spoke before systems died. The Empire mobilized its full might at last, grand fleets assembled, banners displayed, ancient war hymns transmitted across command channels. This was how the Empire reminded the galaxy of order. The human response was silence. The assembled armada advanced towards Sol. They expected ruins. They found watchers. Human vessels emerged not from predictable vectors but from the shadows of warped spacetime itself, riding distortions the Empire had never considered usable. They did not form lines. They did not answer hails. They waited. The woman appeared on every Imperial screen simultaneously, her image unadorned by rank insignia or visual dominance. She stood against a dark background, hands folded behind her back as she had been 10 years earlier. You entered our system without permission, she said calmly. This is your final warning. The Imperial Grand Marshal laughed. You are a remnant civilization speaking to extinction. She inclined her head slightly. Then extinction will learn something new. The battle that followed was studied for generations. Human ships did not outgun the Empire. They outthought it. Artificial intelligence units, grown rather than programmed, predicted Imperial tactics seconds before execution and rewrote engagement spaces in real time. Gravity wells shifted. Time dilation fields skewed firing solutions. Entire squadrons chased decoys that never existed. Human weapons did not burn worlds. They erased fleets one by one. Imperial vessels lost cohesion, not through destruction, but through disintegration of coordination. Command hierarchies collapsed. Ships fled into hyperspace only to emerge light years off course. their navigational data subtly rewritten to tee the battle's height. The woman spoke again. "You hit Earth first," she said. "Now we are coming for you." The transmission ended. What followed was not conquest, it was dismantling. Human forces moved through imperial space like surgeons, excising the mechanisms of dominance while leaving populations intact. Slave species were freed. Client worlds given autonomy. Imperial symbols pulled down, not replaced. The Empire attempted negotiation when it became clear it could not win. The woman met their emissaries aboard a station orbiting a dead star, a neutral ground chosen deliberately. "You could rule," the grand strategist offered. "Take our place." She shook her head. "We do not want your throne." "Then why do this?" he demanded. She looked out at the dark star beyond the viewport. "Because you taught us what happens when someone decides another world is a variable instead of a home." The Empire dissolved not with fire, but with irrelevance. Its fleet stood down. Its council disbanded. Its doctrines were archived as warnings rather than instructions. Humanity returned to Sol. Earth's surface slowly healed. Cities rose again, not as monuments to dominance, but to survival. When alien species finally came, not as conquerors, but as cautious visitors, they found humans watchful, reserved, and unwilling to forget. The woman was never seen again in public. Some said she retired. Others said she watched from the dark still. But across the galaxy, whenever a great power considered striking first, their simulations ended the same way, with a quiet voice, a dark screen, and the knowledge that Earth would never burn alone again.